Good morning. This is Playing to Win with me, Mark Leary. And you are?
I'm back. I'm Brad Freyer. It's good to be here.
Oh, man. Wow. It is great to see you. It's been so long. Tell us about your vacation.
Woo, man. Well, like many Houstonians, my story started with the freeze of Snowmageddon. We lost power and water, and we're down for 3 days without power and water. And the kicker for us was that my wife and my oldest daughter had COVID.
What?
Yeah. So I had two patients that were down with a house that was 48 degrees and no water, and it was as miserable as it sounds.
But it didn't get worse, did it? Couldn't have gotten worse than that.
Yeah. So the Thursday, I think we got power back on Thursday.
So it was over. You're taking a breath. It's feeling good. Power's back.
Sitting on the couch, and I feel the fever rising.
Oh,
and
not for the flavor.
No,
not for the flavor.
And I literally felt it come on, and I ended up with COVID. And for my wife and my daughter, it lasted about 4 to 5 days. For me, it lasted 10.
10 days.
I had fever for 10 days. Just absolutely felt terrible. Yeah,
so
it was. And
in 10 days, I can imagine day 3 or 4 or 5. And it's like there's no trajectory towards better.
Yes.
This is the rest of my life as far as you're concerned.
At that time, you feel like there is no end in sight. Yes. I mean, because, the only frame of reference I had, I've got all these friends who had it who said, oh, it was nothing, I was over it in 2 days. But the only immediate frame of reference I had with my immediate family. And they had it for 4 days. On the 5th day, they were up doing stuff, feeling relatively decent.
So day 5, you planned to party.
Day 5, I'm expecting to be okay on day 5. And day 5, wake up, take my temperature, 102. I'm like, son of a bitch, And by day 5, I mean, the longest I've ever been sick. I probably had the flu for 2 days at some point in my life. I've never been sick, and so. The amount of pills, the Tylenol and ibuprofens and Mucinex, and I had so much fatigue just from taking pills.
Man, it sounds awful.
It was absolutely terrible, absolutely terrible. And so by day 8, I was fed up. Went to urgent care. They did chest X-rays to make sure it hadn't turned into pneumonia. And I told him I was not leaving without a prescription.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah,
was it antidepressant? Was it?
That's right. Yeah. And the doctor literally said, he goes, there's no scientific proof behind anything right now. He goes, I'll give you some Z-Pack and some steroids and send you on your way, but it's not going to do you any good. It'll make you feel better, mentally that you're doing something, but he goes, it's not going to help you.
Wow.
So, yeah. I did an IV drip about day 6 or 7, thinking that, a couple of bags of vitamins and hydration would help. It did not. That
oh,
night
no.
was probably the worst.
This was going to be our viral video, man. This was going to be the one where, we got the cure. And you just sign up here, 1995, the Brad Freyer COVID cure. And damn, you let me down, man.
Yeah. Certainly did. So, so man, I'm easing back into the water. Still a little chest tightness, but I'm probably around 80%, and trying to just regain my bearings. I mean, 3 weeks between the freeze and being down with COVID, it was about a 3-week period, and so I'm coming out of it. Honestly. It's so bizarre to come out of your house after 3 weeks and realize that the world itself is still spinning. Like, people are still going to sporting events and dinner, but you've been in a cocoon for 3 weeks. I mean, it's a very bizarre feeling. So now I'm coming out going, okay, where the hell is everybody? What am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah, like last you checked, everybody pushed pause on the freeze, right? So you're expecting everybody to keep the pause button pushed. It's not
kind of what I was expecting. Yeah. kind of what I thought I was going to walk out into.
Oh man. So yeah, everybody in Texas certainly hit the pause button, big speed bump with the freeze and ice apocalypse, and everybody's pet name for the disaster that was. A lot of frustration, not being able to move things forward. But interesting about that is the way you described it, and kind of everybody was in the same boat for
Right.
Texas, and we were making national news at least. And so if you canceled a meeting, or a lot of times you couldn't cancel the meeting, it was just you just ghosted people because like there was
Yeah.
no internet connection. And so people were like, well, I guess if the news says Texas is shut off, then maybe we'll be okay. So then you got two weeks on top of that.
Yeah.
The topic I wanted to dig into, we talked about is setbacks happen, right? So this is a setback. And so this is a big setback that probably, erases a lot of plans you'd had. I mean, I know I give up plans so hard, right? When the hurricane's coming and I've got a meeting at 1 and the hurricane's going to come at like 2, I'm thinking, okay, so like I'm planning to have the meeting, have the hurricane, and have the meeting supposed to be after the hurricane because I don't want to mess with my schedule. And then sometimes the hurricane says there's no second meeting, and I fight that concept. I'm like, I just in denial as long as I can. So you have that same approach?
Oh yeah. I mean, in the middle of my COVID, I did a training session. Day 6, I roll into the office to do a training session, and I went through. I conducted an hour and a half training session. Dude, by the end, I was sweating. I was drenched. I mean, I was just zapped. And then, of course, I tell the client, a week later, I'm like, hey, man, I hopefully, you couldn't recognize that I was not mentally there, but I had COVID. And he's like, what? He goes, why didn't you just cancel? I was like, I just didn't want to cancel on you guys. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know what I talked about. I mean, my brain was just.
Is it recorded?
No, thank God.
Oh
no.
Man, that'd be awesome. I wish it were. That'd be the best. You should have recorded that. Find out what you said.
So to answer your question, I do have a difficult time punting or rescheduling, but I eventually had to and just cleared the calendar. And so now I'm coming back out of it and trying to figure out, okay, priority 1, what's step 1 again?
Yeah, so the idea is setbacks in the face, or handling setbacks. What is the reaction of somebody who's playing to win in the face of a setback? I mean, sports players all the time have injuries that completely. I mean, actually, that's a very good comparison, right? You think 3 weeks I'm out. Well, what happens if it's a season-ending injury? I mean, you see this in college sports right now. People are like, it's on the way to the big dance, and people are getting like, well, you're going to be on the sidelines. And of course, it's a team sport, and so there's probably some parallels there. If you're thinking about running a business, you're going to think of it the team sport capacity, but in the individual capacity, it's a very different thing. You have to cheer your team on. But the history, before the show started, I brought up this concept like history is ruthless. History is totally ruthless. There's no history book of masterpiece works that would have been written if the twins weren't born that day. And there's no footnotes for people who had very good reasons for not finishing their impact and doing their thing. So we have to execute, but this idea of sacrifice and pushing too hard and just destructive type of effort, how do we look at a situation like this and kind of be our best own advisors? And what would we tell ourselves right now? What are we going to tell you, Brad? What are you telling yourself about how to reorganize and put yourself back in the right position to win? Like J.J. Watt, he had two sequential season-ending injuries, and the first one in the second one he said like, I just pushed myself too hard. I need to really, really get all the way healed so I can come back and win. And it looks like when he came back the third time, he's strong. So how do you advise yourself, and how are you putting together a plan for getting back on the horse?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's a couple of things are interesting, because one is in the midst of all of the chaos and the challenge, negative self-talk becomes a very real thing, and you begin to have that self-talk of, what am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Why am I doing this? Maybe I should just punt and do da 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 da. And because you're, I made the comment one day. I said, I think I found the end of the internet, because I had spent so long just hunkered down. But you're in such a bad place physically that your mind can't help but to get sucked down with it. And so if you're in a professional trough, you're in a valley, you're physically impaired, you've lost a job or whatever, your entire world begins to collapse on itself, and that starts with that negative self-talk, right? And you begin to redefine your self-worth, right, based on what you're doing at that time. And so, Mark, I know you know this, but we often talk about identity versus roles, right? Our identity is our self-worth, our inherent self-worth. You're born a 10, you'll die a 10. Your identity is always a 10. And your roles and responsibilities in life, they fluctuate, right? So your identity is always a 10, but your roles and responsibilities fluctuate. Sometimes you do good and you're achieving great things. Sometimes you fail and you're the bottom rung. Problem is that people tend to allow those two to influence they allow their roles and responsibilities to influence their identity. And so as soon as we allow that line to be crossed, where our roles and responsibilities begin to affect our identity, that's when we have all that negative self-talk. That's when we have all that, oh, what do I do? Oh, woe is me. Can I ever make a comeback? Will I ever be as good as I was before? Whereas if we keep a very clear line of delineation between identity and roles and responsibilities, our identity, our self-worth is always a 10. And so we always have to be reminding ourselves, what do 10s do? Right? What do 10s believe? What do 10s do for their behaviors? What's their attitude, their behavior, their technique? What do 10s do if I genuinely believe that my inherent self-worth is a 10? And try to get back into that mindset. That makes sense.
So yeah, it does.
In my own head, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes perfect. So the two things come to mind. I want to know more about what a 10 does and what is your 10, because I kind of tend to think that identity is a little bit of a fingerprint on the individual, and that you are who you are, and that you at your best is that constant. And you kind of have to know who you at your best are from an identity perspective to apply it to these roles. And it's maddeningly difficult to unplug yourself from these roles, because every day we're a father, we're a sibling, our spouse helps us to keep in check about the relationship there, our parents, our kids, our job is always very, very demanding of performance in the roles. And there's almost nobody who's going to really draw us back to that identity more than us. We kind of own that responsibility to pull ourselves back to our best self. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, so that part of that is just identifying what do I-10s do, right? I-10 being identity 10.
Not Interstate 10 that takes you to Florida or California, and that's a completely different set of identities. We got to be right in the middle here in Houston.
That's right. So when you think about what do and to rephrase it, but what do winners, right? Identity of 10, those are the intellectual winners of the world. What do winners believe? Well, winners believe that setbacks happen, but you don't let them stop you from progress. Winners believe that they do the behaviors that are needed to succeed every day, even when they don't see results. Winners believe that that at the end of a bad day, they're going to wake up tomorrow with optimism because good things are ahead, right? Winners believe that that it's not woe is me. Winners believe that, hey, good things happen to me. I put myself in a position for success. I put myself in a position to gain luck. And so when you think about what do winners believe versus the alternatives, right? You think about somebody who has an identity that they've attached themselves to, which is a 3 or a 4, right? The intellectual losers of the world. The people who say, oh, woe is me. Hey, there's a lightning storm outside. Don't stand next to me because it's going to strike me first, right? Those are the people who are, they're the Eeyores, right? They're always looking for negativity. And they'll attract it, right? You will attract, the power of attraction. You will attract what you think about the most. I had a great friend of mine give me a book during the COVID downtime called "Can't Hurt Me," and Goggins, David Goggins.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
And the guy is it's a book about it's the story of a guy who just had an absolute turd sandwich delivered to him in life, right? And how he has overcome, and some of the crazy things that he did, and why he did them, right? For him, it was all about mind over matter and achieving great things because I willed myself to do it, not because I was inherently capable. And that book, I mean, when you're feeling terrible and you're doubting everything that's going on around you, and you read a book about this guy who has it exponentially worse but overcame, and it those are the kind of things that sometimes can help you through. Just get your mind right, get your head pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it all on your own.
Well, that's an interesting point because it ties into the second thought I had. I've noticed a pattern, and that is some of the most accomplished athletes have a story about, not even just a story, like a narrative. Like, everybody doubted me. People kept telling me I couldn't do it, and I showed them. And I'm really thinking about, like, what does that do? And when somebody says you can't do it, I mean, most entrepreneurs respond kind of viscerally to the idea of, like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. And it's like, okay, I guess I know what I'm doing next. I'm going to show you you're wrong. That's all. I don't know what I'm doing, but other than showing you I'm wrong, that's what I'm going to do. And so I think I've come to this conclusion that external enemy is very easy to identify and go after. And oftentimes I think it's fuel and perhaps good if you've got kind of a cheering section against you because you're fired up and you know who the enemy is. The enemy that's hardest to conquer is the one in your head, when it's you who doesn't believe in you or is saying things like that. That's the one that's really, really hard to fight. And so you got to maybe find that enemy or find some way to intellectually outsmart yourself to give yourself that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, that studies range, but they say humans have somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 thoughts a day. I'm sorry, not a day. An hour? No, can't be that. Anyway, I'm gonna have to look that one up and get back to you. I believe it's 2 or 3. Trust your gut, Brad. 2,000 or 3,000 thoughts a day, and of those thoughts, something like 86% of them are negative. Some would say that we have a tendency to think negatively because we are hardwired from prehistoric days to be concerned about all the things that can kill us. Because back before we had modern luxuries, our job was just to stay alive every day. And so our brain was always focused on, okay, what's going to eat me today, right? What do I need to be aware of? And so there's studies that suggest that our brain is still hardwired to be aware of negativity. But now that we don't have to be concerned about basic survival, we've found other nonsensical bull to fill in those voids, right? Oh, this person doesn't like me. Oh, that person this, or, oh, well, this is just too hard, or I can't ever get back to where I was, or I can't achieve. And so we fill all those negative voids with other negative thoughts. And so, it's a very real thing. I always encourage people, hey, when you're driving down the freeway, just pay attention to what you're saying to yourself. Right? Yeah. What are you saying? What is the self-talk that's happening when you're just on an open road driving? Are you telling yourself, man, I'm awesome. I am fantastic. I'm going to take on the world. I do amazing things. I am the best. I always achieve. I win. No, that's not what you're saying to yourself. What you're probably saying to yourself is, oh my God, I can't believe I got to deal with this. Oh, and what about that? And I can't believe she would say that to me. And I can't believe he did this. And he's the reason for my woes. And that's probably what you're thinking, right? And what does that do to us? Right? The brain and the body are so interconnected that the physiological impact of negative thinking is real.
Yeah, what I discovered of that is a lot of that's habits and patterns that we program ourselves with. And having done a little bit of study on habits and reading James Clear, BJ Fogg, Charles Duhigg, their work on this. Most of us think that we're in control of our actions continuously and fluidly. And if you start to understand how habits work, you realize that almost everything, at least 80%, but it's probably the data is probably much higher than that, is pre-programmed conditioned responses. Like when the alarm goes off, you do certain things. And when you feel slightly hungry, there's certain habits you do. So we wouldn't be efficiently able to navigate your life, your day, if the vast majority of things in the day weren't automatically happening. And those thought patterns you described, you're in the car, those are no different. I've found that when you experience an emotion or something that doesn't go right, there's a pre-packaged explanation waiting for you, and it's probably pre-worded. As soon as something happens wrong, or upsets you, or puts you in a state of a condition that's familiar emotionally, there's a statement or a handful of statements just on the shelf, ready to go, and they're going to be narrating the explanation intellectually for you. And so the key to that is understanding you got to reprogram those, because they're not going to go away. You can't just say go away. That's the nature of habits. Actually, you cannot erase a habit, but you can reprogram a habit. So that's the idea, in essence, behind real positive thinking, of putting yourself in the right cohorts of like-minded thinkers and people who want to do the things you want to do, because you want to start rewiring and repopulating that bookshelf of natural explanations for common occurrences, because they just fly. They just come. You're not crafting the explanation. It's there.
Is there one that comes to mind? Is there an example that you can give?
Oh, it's a good example. A good question. It's kind of almost anything. Oh, well, here's this is the obvious one. It's like, I'm such an idiot. Like, doesn't matter what just happened. I'm such an idiot. Like that I'm sure no one else does that. Right? Some people verbalize that. Some people keep it in their head. Right?
Sure.
So It's like, okay, stop a second. You're not an idiot. You're not, Brad. You're not an idiot.
Yeah.
You're not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. Why perpetuate that fundamentally, patently untrue statement? Why do we do that?
Yeah.
It's just automatic.
Yeah. How old is your oldest child?
19 years old.
Okay. Yeah. I knew she was a teenager. I didn't know which teen year she was. I've got teenage daughters as well. And that is something that you see, when they become probably middle school, you begin to hear that triggered response to stuff, and you begin to say, whoa,
yeah,
wait, why are you saying that?
Yeah.
And because you don't want the recordings to become reality, right?
Yeah. Well, what I see, I tried to prohibit that language. It's like, I'm not going to allow you to call yourself stupid. I'm not going to we're not going to pass that around. I'm going to play around with that because, I like being sarcastic. I like snarkiness. I like edge, but I have an even greater commitment to reality, to the truth and the importance, and anything to me that erodes that foundation of truth of what matters most, not okay. And so the trick, though, it's not enough to prohibit. And I'm kind of pointing myself out. I prohibit that language, but what I really realized I left on the table is to focus on, what do you replace it with?
Replace it, yeah.
You got to have a new habit to replace. Yeah, you got to have a new habit to go in there.
Well, I think habits, going full circle around to where the conversation started, I think the habits are the thing that bring you out of funks.
Yeah. Well, right.
The healthy
habits and routines, both which are different, right? A habit is something that's defined typically as happens multiple times a day, routinely, but routines can be like once a week or once a day. And if they're consistent, and I had that happen. After the ice storm, I realized I was starting to feel lost, and I have a routine on Wednesdays. That's my clarity break day. And so, because of the ice storm and other things, the clarity break hadn't happened in 3 weeks. And I was like, I need to figure out what's wrong with my life. And then it was like the clarity break came up, and I was like, I'm not messing with it. I got to have the clarity break. And in that clarity break, I realized it was behind my 1 year planning, and I had the space. And so I redid my 1 year plan. I did my priorities, and I was like, wow, this routine saved me. Then I didn't need to go. It was going to find me, and I I found it. We got together, and it gave me that clarity. So understanding the importance of that pulse, that routine, in addition to sort of that observation and using those habits for sure.
Totally agree. And starting small, right?
Yeah.
Making it about the small changes, the small victories, the small habits, the small routines. When you get in funks, sometimes something as simple as just your morning routine can change the trajectory of the day, right? Getting up, look, I don't have a meeting until 9 o'clock. I don't need to get up until 7. Yeah, but why not go ahead and get up at 6:30? Go for a walk and take a shower. All right. Why not start the day a little bit different just to create a healthy habit that's going to change the way that you progress? And so I'm getting up at 6:30 and I'm going to go for a walk instead of just sleeping an extra 30 or 45 minutes and rushing out the door. But then while I'm on my walk, maybe I use that time for prayer or meditation or positive self-talk practice or whatever it might be. But making the small changes, right? It doesn't have you don't change your life overnight. Everybody sees these 15-year overnight successes. Oh, that guy did it overnight. No, he didn't. He really worked long and hard to get to where he is. We're just seeing the results of it.
Well, I say a lot. Big wins are just the result of a series of small wins. You don't get random big wins. You don't. Not truly big wins. You don't get a Super Bowl ring, just because you're lucky. One hit wonder is not a thing. No, it's not,
you don't draft Tom Brady and then win a Super Bowl. That's not the reality.
Yeah. So I think that, kind of summarizing all that we talked about here, I do think at ends of the spectrum, we've got negative self-talk. Why is that important? Disruptions happen, threats come, and the natural tendency is to get in our own heads. That chaos, that disorder, that negative self-talk is kind of natural, especially when there's something we feel threatening, even if it's doesn't seem life-threatening. If it's threatening to our plans, threatening to our income, threatening to our objectives, we're going to go negative. And so what's the antidote to that? And I believe that it really has to do with this ability to observe. You have to get back to a space where you can look around. What's going on? What am I doing? What's most important? What am I thinking? What am I saying? And then going back to feeding back into those very fundamental habits. Starts with, okay, is it true? Am I a failure? Nope, not really. Am I an idiot? I am not an idiot. And so let's be honest about that and build up the foundations from there. So what's the next couple of weeks going to look like for you, my friend? Your schedule, I'm guessing, has had some damage.
My schedule has had a lot of damage, and so I'm, really for me, I'm rebuilding my schedule on both the personal and professional side because, on the personal side, I've lost a lot of weight, I've lost a lot of muscle mass, I've lost cardio capacity, and so. For me on the personal side, it's going to be incremental improvement, right? Just getting out and doing walks and then, sit and be fit. And then, because unfortunately, a lot of physical damage was done from 10 days of nothingness. And then professionally, yeah, I'm essentially starting over. All the progress that I had made has weaned down, and so now my goal.
Thanks, Winnie. Winnie was comment. I got to Winnie a shout out. So thank you. You are a rock star, Winnie.
I love Winnie Hart. She is one of my favorite people. Phenomenal person. But yeah, so just getting back into the routine of that one step forward every day. So yeah.
Well, I think it's not. I want to make sure we get it on our time and be quick, but
yep.
You said something that was important. It's got to start over. That's so defeating feeling, especially when you made great progress. Man, I was where I needed to be, and now it's like I feel like I'm starting over. But that's reality. Everybody who's ever had a surgery in the season, it's like I was going to catch the game-winning touchdown. Now I'm trying to walk. That's humbling, and that is the resilience.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's our time, Brad. I'm so glad we're back. We were supposed to talk about transactional analysis 3 times ago. Let's talk about it next time. Be good stuff, man. Fantastic. Until then, Until then, observe yourself, give yourself some reality check. You're not an idiot and you're not a loser, and take the first steps, even if they're baby steps, and work your way back to where you need to be. We'll see you next time on Playing to Win with me, Mark Henderson Leary, and your good friend, Brad Freyer.
Happy selling.